Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. I hope you are all well and safe. In today's how-to video, I will share with you the different steps we took to process my student permit and my husband's open work permit application. I will also include the various documents we gathered and submitted and the fees involved. Hope this video could help you with your preparation for your future applications. Okay. So why did we decide to apply for our permits together? It is because as an international student studying full-time and have a valid study permit here in Canada, our spouse or common law partner can apply for an open work permit which will not require a job offer for them to apply, as their permit will be valid for the same period as our study permit. With this, we would like to take advantage of the opportunity for us to come together in Canada for the following reasons. First is for emotional support. If this is your first time living abroad and being away from your family for an extended period of time, as it was for me, having a family member to be there for you would be extremely beneficial to accompany you on your new adventure because it can help alleviate homesickness and loneliness. Second is for physical support. If you are used to having someone else do your household chores for you, coming to Canada will force you to learn to do these on your own. Having your partner assist you with the household chores would be ideal in this situation. It would undoubtedly help reduce physical job demands, especially since you have a lot on your plate as a student, such as attending face-to-face classes, working on school assignments or projects, as well as part-time work. This is where having a partner can help relieve stress and allow you to focus. Third reason is for financial support. Studying in Canada as an international student would cost an arm and a leg because our tuition is nearly triple that of locals. As I did not come from a wealthy family and we did not have millions to spend on my studies and living expenses, we had to work for it. Our best option is to bring my husband with me because as a holder of an open work permit, he can work full-time for any employer and in any position. Teamwork is critical to meeting our needs, such as paying our monthly bills and saving for my tuition so that I can finish my program on time. The fourth and final reason is for my husband to gain Canadian work experience. Coming to Canada with me will give him the opportunity to gain valuable work experience that will allow him to broaden his knowledge and skills, as well as experience something new for him to learn and grow from. Others also see it as a chance for their open work permit holders to gain Canadian work experience that will help them qualify for permanent residency in the future. Okay, so those are just few of the reasons why it is advantageous to bring your spouse or common law partner with you as you study in Canada. In our case, it is also our strong desire to travel to Canada together and support one another in our quest for a better life and future, not only for ourselves but also for our families back home in the Philippines. Okay, so now let me walk you through the steps we did for the preparation and submission of our application. The first step is for you to decide on how do you intend to apply. You have two options to do this, which is either you use an agency or you do it yourself, or popularly known as DIY. Let me quickly share with you some positive points about the two. If you apply through an agency, they have partnerships with institutions or schools in Canada who can assist you in getting your letter of acceptance from your chosen school. Second is because immigration is the core of their business, they have already gained the expertise to guide you through the entire process based on their experiences with their various clients. Third, with their partnerships and expertise in this pathway, using their services as long as you can afford them, as they can be very expensive, can help you save the stress of doing it alone. I would just like to emphasize that if you decide to go this route, you should still do your own due diligence, do some research, and get to know the procedure. The IRCC website has information about the process as well as other important information to help better understand how it works. I will include a link in the description box below for your reference. On the other hand, if you would opt to do it yourself, the first advantage of DIY is that you can save a lot of money. Instead of paying the agency, you can use the money to fund your application and your stay in Canada. Second advantage is you have complete or full control over your application, from gathering all your documents you believe will help strengthen your application to filling out of forms, providing application details, or uploading documents online and checking the status or progress of your application. Finally, you will also experience great self-satisfaction. The entire process is not a walk in the park, let alone the waiting game. But when you receive your approval, it will be the best moment. You will feel really proud of yourself that you made it through, even if you did it yourself and with your own effort. If you are still in the process of gathering more information about this pathway, there are many groups on Facebook that you can join. You can read through some posts from members who were and were not successful in their applications, a mix of with agency or DIY applications. You can learn a lot from their experiences that will help you with your future application. You may also meet people who share your dream and will eventually become your friends and support group in your journey. I can include links to the various Facebook groups I joined to help us prepare or to help you prepare for your application in the job description below. Moving on, so once you have already decided on how you intend to apply and you have already received your letter of acceptance, you can already start gathering or continue preparing your documents. For our application, we have grouped together our documents into 8 different categories, and these are as follows. First is the checklist, forms and fees, then Canadian institution, personal requirements, educational background, and then proof of past and current employment, proof of financial assets and home ties, and then proof of funds, and then proof of relationship. Let me now walk you through the various documents that we have attached for each of these groups of documentation. For the checklist, forms, and fees, the following is the list of different documents we submitted. More or less, we attached the same documents for my student permit and my husband's open work permit, and I have highlighted in red the documents that we defer. By the way, we applied for our permit applications via paper-based format, thus the VFS consent form, Manila Visa Office document checklist, and the biometrics free receipt, as we did our biometrics on the same day we lodged our application. These documents will not be applicable to online applications. For the fees, we paid $150 for my student permit, and then $255 for my husband's open work permit, and then we paid $170 for our biometrics. And then for the documents from our Canadian institution, we attached the following. First is the letter of acceptance from my designated learning institution. We also attached the school confirmation deposit receipt. So this is the receipt of the 1,000 Canadian dollars that I paid for to my school to secure my letter of acceptance. We were not required by the school to pay upfront the first term full tuition, so I just included in my statement of purpose that I will be paying my first term tuition in full once I get the approval of my student permit application. So moving on to the list of personal requirements. So here's the list of documents we have submitted. I'll cover later on those documents highlighted in red. So basically, more or less, my husband and I submitted the same type of documents for this group of documentations. We submitted a copy of our passport bio page, 2 photos as per visa office specifications, and then NBI clearance. We also submitted 2 personal identification cards. You can make use of your SSS, UMID ID, your driver's license, or your HDMF or Pag-ibig ID. And then we also submitted PSA copies of our birth certificate, and then birth certificate of each other. We also included that as proof of, certificate for our spouse. And then we also submitted a PSA copy of our marriage certificate. And then since we did our medical exam up front, we also submitted the medical information sheet. For the personal study plan or statement of purpose for the student applicant, and for the letter of explanation or letter of intent for the open work permit applicant, I would consider these as one of the most important documents you should not miss to include. Applying for our permit would not involve any opportunity for us to be interviewed and explain to the visa officers in person our intent and our motivation as to why we want to study in Canada or why we want to be with our spouse. So these documents will help them understand our plans or our goals and provide them insights into our capacity to support our studies and our living expenses in Canada. For reference, I will try to create a different content based on what we have covered in our own statement of purpose and letter of intent. Please stay tuned for that. Okay, so now let's proceed for the educational background. So here's the list of documents we have submitted. I have highlighted in gray those requirements which are not required, such as IELTS and education credential assessment, but I did still initiate to submit them. For other institutions, these might be required. So for the student applicant and open work permit applicant, we submitted our high school diploma, we submitted our college transcript of records, and then college diploma. And then since I already have my high school transcript with me, when I applied for my school, I also included that in my application. And to continue, for the proof of current and previous employment, these are the documents that can be used to support your intention to pursue a specific program in Canada if it aligns with your current role or could help you establish career stability in your home country, as well as support where you're getting your funds. And here are the set of documents we have submitted. We submitted a copy of our company ID, that is if you are currently employed. We submitted certificate of employment with job description from our current and past employment. We also submitted an employment recommendation letter. For this one, this is optional, but you can submit it if you can obtain one from your boss, as it can help establish your good employment record or standing in the company and the possibility of re-employment when you return to the Philippines. And then last but not the least, you also have to include the list of activities that you have been into for the past 10 years. Okay, so moving on, for the proof of financial assets and home ties, these are documents that you can prove to the visa officer that you and your family have strong ties in the Philippines or in your home country. Visa officers must be convinced that you and your family intend to leave Canada at the end of your temporary stay, which we can demonstrate this by having something or someone to return to. Here is the list of documents we submitted for our situation. And these are the same documents we submitted for my student permit application and for my husband's open work permit application. So we submitted photos of the senior citizen IDs of our parents. We also submitted photos of me and my husband with our families and our fur babies. And then we also submitted a notarized affidavit of attestation of inheritance of family business. This is more trying to establish that we will be taking over a family business when we return to our home country. And then we also submitted a copy of the business registration. And then we submitted the copy of the government contributions for our contributions, such as SSS, HDMF or Pag-ibig. And then we also submitted an insurance investment certificate. And then we submitted a memorial life plan. This is the St. Peter life plan that we've got for ourselves. And then we also included land titles. By the way, these land titles did not have our names on it, as these were not yet officially transferred yet, but we included it as proof to the visa officer that our parents have these properties that they will be dividing or be giving to us, their children, when we return to the Philippines. Next is the proof of funds. These are the documents you must present as proof that you have the financial means to cover your living expenses and tuition for the full duration of your program. These documents must satisfy the visa officer that the funds you provided were not provided for show, as you will need these funds when you arrive in Canada. When submitting these documents, make sure they are recent, within 3 months of when you lodge your application and that the contents are readable, especially the account number, account name, and balance. For our proof of personal funds, we provided the following. We submitted a bank certificate and statement of accounts of our own bank accounts, separate bank accounts, and then we also submitted pay slips worth 6 months. And then since I was also a member of a cooperative, so I also submitted a cooperative certificate showing there how much is my savings. And then we also submitted BIR 2316 forms. So that would be for the recent year and the past year. So I think it was equivalent to 3 years. And then as we also had 2 sponsors, we also included proof of their capacity to provide financial support for our living expenses and tuition. And these documents are the following. We submitted an affidavit of support, and then bank certificate and statement of accounts of our sponsors. We also submitted the land and vehicle certificates of our sponsors. We also attached pictures of me, the student permit applicant, with a sponsor as proof that we do really have a strong relationship, such as like the sponsor is a relative or a family member. And then we also submitted the birth certificate of the sponsor to establish ties. And then we also submitted certificate of employment of our sponsors. And then as one of our sponsors is a permanent resident, we also submitted a copy of his permanent resident card and then a copy of their passport bio page. Moving on to the proof of relationship. So these are the documents that we use to prove that, or these are documents you can use to prove that you and your spouse or common law partner have a genuine relationship. Another piece of documentation you'd need to provide to persuade the visa officer that your application for an open work permit is not fraudulent. And here are the documents that we provided. We provided a PSA copy of our marriage certificate, and then I also provided an insurance investment certificate showing my spouse's name as one of my beneficiaries. And then we also included of a lot of photos of us together from the start of our relationship up to the most recent photos we had prior to our application submission. Okay, so now let's move on to step 3. Now that we have covered the different documentation, let's proceed with the most important step, which is for you to submit your application. During the time of my application, we had 2 options. You can apply either through paper-based application or through online application using a GCKey account. Let me share with you some information about the 2 based from our experience. During our time, when we did the paper-based application, I would say there were a lot of printing of documents, and you also have to submit your applications through the visa VFS Global Visa Application Center. And then for us to gain visibility of the progress or status of our application, there is actually an option for you as well to link your paper-based application to a GCKey account so you can monitor the progress from there. And then for the online application, it is much more efficient, and all you have to do is just to scan files in PDF format. You will submit your application through the IRCC website through this link shown on your screen, and of course you have easy access to updates. No need to link, as your account is already an online account, so you can easily access progress or updates related to your application. Now moving on to step 4, once you have submitted your application, the next step is for you to wait for further instructions, such as for the paper-based application, it would just be the waiting game. Since for paper-based app, you have to do upfront medical and biometrics on the same day of application submission, so you don't have to do something else. everything has been done, so all you have to do is just to wait for updates regarding your application. And then in my case, since I was impacted by the pandemic, so I had to submit the new letter of acceptance from my school, as I had to defer my program intake. For online application, once you have already lodged your application online, you have to wait for medical exam instructions, and then for your biometrics instructions. And then for step 5, after you have finished the medical exams and biometrics, your status will be updated to reviewing eligibility, and all you have to do is wait for updates or results, and of course, pray. The waiting game is the most agonizing part of the entire process. It causes a great deal of stress and sleepless nights. So praying for your application will give you some peace while you wait for the results. And then once your application has been approved, you will receive a correspondence from IRCC about the approval of your application status for paper-based app. In our case, our passports were handed over to the visa application center, and then it was sent over to us. And then for the online applicants, you will receive a passport request to send your passport to VFS. Right, so the documents we discussed in the previous slides are the most commonly used as supports, and I would like to share with you some additional documents we have submitted. Our motto at the time is that we hope to persuade or convince the visa officer to give us the approval on our first attempt, so we chose to go over rather than under with our documentation. And these documents are as follows. So for the purpose of study, you can include a career development plan. It is a documented career development plan that you can discuss or you have discussed with your manager that shows your future career goal. And then if you do have, or if you are engaged in an online business, like in our case, wherein it was not yet a BIR registered business, we only had a DTI registration, as we were doing it as a side business, you can include photos of your products or services you sell to your customers. In our case, our Instagram page was ideal because it shows thumbnails of all products we uploaded or sold to our customers. And we also printed our Facebook page details that shows when we first started. Next one is recommendation letter from your current manager or supervisor. If you can obtain this document from your manager, this might also help. This document can inform the visa officer about your current standing as an employee and how your studies may benefit you in your current job or chosen career. In our case, we obtained this document from my husband's open work permit application, which included a statement indicating that they are willing to hire him back when he returns to the Philippines. Then you can also include photos of what you are passionate about. You can include photos of you doing what you are passionate about in terms of something you can tie into your future career goal, like you probably facilitating seminars, doing talks, something or anything you can tie into your future career goal. And then for the proof of funds, as I have previously shared, we have an online side business, so we provided copies of online business payment transactions from our customers. Not really all of them, but we attached the most recent transactions we had, like probably worth for a month. And because we also had a sponsor for our stay in Canada, we also provided a copy of his apartment lease agreement. If your sponsor owns a home, then you can also provide a copy of their proof of ownership. And then lastly, for the proof of home ties, we also included pictures of us with all our pets. We had about many dogs and many cats. So my husband and I have been married for 3 years but have no children. So it's explained in our letters that our pets or our fur babies are like our kids and are just one of the reasons we are convented to come home after our temporary stay. We also included photos of our family get-togethers or gatherings or family celebrations as additional proof that we have a very close-knit family in the Philippines. Moving on, I would like to share another step we took that you might also consider if this applies to your situation. Our application got delayed due to the pandemic. With this, our anxiety was already above head level, as I was supposed to start in September in 2020, but it was already August then, and our application still had no movement or progress, and so I had to request for a GCMS notes for us to get an idea of our status. GCMS notes refers to Global Case Management Notes. So you can request for this if there are delays in your application or your application has been refused, because it can help you gain a better perspective of the status of your IRCC application, as visa officer would include their comments or feedback about your application. And there are two options for you to order or request for this. Option one is you can order this through someone you know who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. You have to pay $5 fee, and this can be paid directly through the IRCC website. All you have to do is just to fill out the access to information request form, include your application number, and have that Canadian citizen or permanent resident submit this request on your behalf. The second option is you can request for this through an agency. I have included here a link where we also requested one, and we had to pay $20 fee, which is more expensive than a Canadian citizen or permanent resident do this for you. We also did the same thing. We also filled out the access to information request form and included our application number. Processing time for this is 30 to 35 calendar days. Okay, so before we wrap up this how-to video, let me quickly share our very unforgettable timeline and some of the costs we paid for our application. We started gathering our documents in January and February of 2020, and here are some of the costs we paid for the documents we processed. We paid 310 pesos for our NBI clearance. Then, as we did the paper-based application, we paid a VFS fee of 1,850 pesos. And just to make sure that our passports are still valid up until I complete my program and up until I get my postgraduate work permit, so we requested for a new passport that is valid for 10 years, and we paid 2,500 pesos for that. We also did an upfront medical exam, and we paid 26,030 pesos, and that's for me and my husband. Then, as soon as we received the result of our upfront medical exam, we lodged our application in February 28th of 2020 and also had our biometrics on the same day. Here are the costs we paid for. We paid $150 for my student permit application, and then $255 for my husband's open work permit application, and we paid $170 for our biometrics. And because there had been no updates on our application for several months due to the pandemic, we had to request for GCMS notes to get an idea of the status of our applications. We did it twice, in August and September of 2020. We paid $25 as we tried both options to order or request for it, and I made separate requests for me and my husband. We learned from the GCMS notes that we can expect a positive result for our permit application because, according to the GCMS notes, a visa officer has already reviewed our application in July of 2020. So far, the remarks indicated were positive. With this, we hope to receive approval soon, and in November 2020, our applications were finally approved and we received our stamp passports on the same month. Alright, so that wraps up our student permit and open work permit application process. I hope this helps you figure out what documents you will need to prepare and submit with your application. Our permit applications took a long time, like 9 months, and the process was very challenging because of the uncertainty brought about by the pandemic, but we remained hopeful that if this is part of God's plan for our lives, He will make it happen in His perfect time. And indeed, He did. Whatever it is you are going through through right now, just continue to trust the process and keep the faith. For truly, God makes all things beautiful in His time. If your first attempt is unsuccessful, do not be afraid to try again, because you might just get the approval you have been waiting for on your next attempt. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for future uploads or stories of our journey here in Canada. Thank you, and you all have a good day.